So, hello everyone, welcome, and this is our 12th session in this refresher series. So, for the first time, and it's an amazing thing that we have a guest trainer here, Tarun, and Tarun, thank you very much actually for joining. Thanks a lot for how to say honoring us by taking this session, which is actually a very tricky session. The topic procurement management is really very tricky. So our idea is, see, so for 11 sessions, it would have been really boring. The same guy, right? Me talking and talking and lecturing and everything. So not only to introduce some variety, but also to get real expertise because not everyone knows everything. So the idea is to get some real experts on specific topics to talk to you about the topics that are also their passion. At the same time, it's also the strong areas so that everyone gets benefited. So today we start with our first ever guest session by Tarun. Tarun is a project manager with Bosch Coimbatore. He is my colleague, and of course he will also speak about himself, his background and everything shortly. So Tarun, I've been associated with Tarun for quite a long time now, and he is not just a project manager. He is also, more importantly, a PMP trainer within Bosch. And one of the main topics that Tarun usually takes, among other things, is procurement management. And usually Bosch has regular PMP training sessions for its internal associates, and Tarun has been regularly a trainer. And I remember Tarun from almost 2 years back when he first contacted me saying, "Hey Bhuvan, I cleared my PMP." Tarun, I may be wrong about the timeline, correct me. Bhuvan, I finished my PMP, now I want to also be a trainer. And various topics I was very, because we are also looking for trainers within the company, and that was a great opportunity. And Tarun now regularly trains our associates on PMP topics. Procurement management is one, cost management is another thing. So without much ado, I leave the floor open to Tarun, who can start with a quick introduction about himself, and we can get into the topic. But before that, today's topic of course is on procurement management, one subtopic, because we are not going to do the entire session of procurement management, because it's simply not possible to cover this in 1 hour, at least in a way that it makes sense. The difference between procurement management and other knowledge areas, as you all know in PMP, is while we as project managers are involved in doing all these activities in our everyday job, procurement management is something that we usually do not. Most of the time, make or buy decisions are made as make. Very rarely we do buy decisions, and when buy decisions are made, the work is taken out of our hands most of the time. So even if we do get a chance to do the make or buy decision, once the buy decision is made and the work has gone to say another agency, which becomes our supplier now, the work of a project manager is heavily diminished, which is one major reason why procurement management has remained largely in theory, and it becomes very difficult for people to understand when we do PMP. And many people find it difficult to understand the spirit behind procurement management. As I repeatedly have been telling you, if you understand the spirit behind every single thing, understanding the concepts in PMBOK and passing the PMP exam becomes a cakewalk. So, what better than to have a person who has not just experience doing it but also experience training people on that topic, procurement management? Tarun himself speak about this, so you can understand the spirit of the topic, and then procurement management becomes easy. And we have chosen this topic, which many have asked us repeatedly, type of contracts. So, how we will do it is, Tarun would start with a general, he will set the context with what procurement management is, the basics and everything, so that we don't jump directly into the topic. But once you have got the context of what procurement management is, where planning comes, and where contracts come into the picture, then we will easily slide into the topic of types of contracts, which we will see in detail. And then maybe we can look at some topics outside this but related to this in a very brief manner. And then we will leave the floor open to questions on this topic as well as any other topic in PMP. So with this, Tarun, thank you very much from all of us at PM Rita and the PMP Refresher series again. The floor is open. You can start with an introduction about yourself and we move to the topic. Tarun.
Yeah, thank you, Bhuvan, for the short introduction and making me expert over here at least. So I would say, yeah, I am doing these sessions for procurement management for I think 3 years in Bosch itself. And yeah, more or less you said 2 years, maybe I think more than 3 years we were in contact, I guess. So slight correction over there. And yeah, myself, basically I'm from Kerala, and I'm also part of right now Kerala chapter also for I think for 3 years now in a line for PMI Kerala chapter. And I was part of Chennai chapter as well, and now I continued with Kerala chapter, but not with the Chennai chapter as of now. So, and from PMP project management point of view, with the Bosch, I am there around for 6 years overall. I think more than 13 years. I need to calculate. I think around 13 years. You can consider. And I worked in various locations in India and various organizations. So I worked in Rajasthan, I worked in Delhi, I worked in Hyderabad, and right now I'm working in Coimbatore. So different locations, geographical location within India, and with a different organization I worked with. And from project management point of view, I have PMP and also Prince 2. So I'm certified with both PMP certification and Prince 2 practitioner certification as well. So this is very short. And from personal point of view, basically I'm from Kerala, and I think Lakshmi is also there, is part of PMI Kerala chapter, I guess, because I shared something on my PM Brita, and then it was shared in PMI Kerala chapter. So I hope she is from Kerala. So one thing I came to know. Yeah. So overall, this is from the personal front here, and I have a kid. He's studying in first standard. So this is one brief introduction about me. Now let us talk or take us to the slides which I wanted to share, or you can say topic which we wanted to talk about today is procurement management. So basically, if we go for a full session, as Bhuvana told that okay, it is very difficult to cover it in short duration of what we have right now. So we will focus on procurement management, what it is, and then maybe how overall flow of the program, and then maybe towards the contracting part. So what kind of contract we have, and then try to understand them in brief. So what I'm covering, just from the agenda point of view, what, why, and who, and then contract and contract type. So let's talk or take it from the first point as the PMP definition, what PMP talks about. So I have put some underline over here. So in general, if I say procurement management includes the process necessary to procure or acquire product, service, or result from outside the project team. So it is two points I have here underlined basically to keep it in mind, and then to be focusing on over here is one is that okay, necessity. So it is always driven only based on the necessity. That okay, necessity doesn't mean that okay, we need anything and then we are simply going out and then doing procurement. It is a complete analysis of real necessity, and will it be done within the organization? Can it be done? I mean, the make or buy decision, or can we do an internal support from external team, which is not within which can be done within the organization, or should we really go out of the organization or out of the team, or can we acquire some people who are expert and take it within the team itself? So these are the necessity part. And when we say second underline I have mentioned is regarding the outside the project team. So one it is basically something which we cannot accommodate within the project team, really cannot accommodate within the team. That is where we talk about the procurement. So this is the definition point of view, though it is there in the PIMBOK. I just wanted to stress on the few points marked as underline. Now let us talk about why and who about the procurement. So I'll just take you through a short I mean story or short chat. It is kind of on a lighter note, but it will help you to understand what is the importance of it and who should be doing it on a higher level. Is it visible clearly?
Yes,
Am I? Yeah.
Dilbert, right?
Yeah, correct.
Beautiful. It is visible, Tarun. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, fine. So if you see on the screen, there are two people. I will try to take pointer as well, so it is easy to, yeah, that one. Ah, it is not working for me, but fine, not an issue.
Tarun, there is a laser pointer above. If you right click on the top above, there is.
Yeah.
No, no. Ah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Now it's
sorry,
visible.
I clicked wrong place. Okay.
No, no, no problem.
Yeah. So if you see you see this left hand side in the complete story, left hand side person is the seller or the person with whom we are buying something, uh, and this is the person from our side. It could be a project manager, it can be a procurement manager, or any other person who is taking responsibility of procurement, or someone who is from the buying side. So if you see or maybe read through as well, when there is a discussion or conversation starts between these two people, and this guy says that okay, this is not the deal what we agreed on. So it is something he's saying that okay, we didn't agreed on this, this is something else, or we are trying to violate something here. The seller side says that okay, I forgot few things on the first estimation, but you need them. So now he's saying that okay, yeah, we agreed on something, but now there is a change and you need it, so you cannot ignore doing this. Then the person from the buyer side again talks about okay, I only picked you because you were the lowest price. I mean, they have did the complete procurement, contracting, everything is done, but they looked at what is the lowest cost, and then they have taken him. uh, then he responds that okay, yes, but vendor selection is done, and it would be too much trouble for you to start over. So it means what he's trying to say is that okay, yeah, you are right, I am the lowest bidder, but now everything is done. Now you cannot go back and then start the cycle again. And and then he said that okay, if you might, uh, it might even damage your career because you delayed the project. So he's indirectly threatening him, saying that okay, if you are delaying, or if you um, uh, don't agree with me, you might even create a problem for your own career. Then he further continues and says that okay, you could go and the second highest bidder, but the guys would do the same for you. And ultimately what he's trying to say is that okay, now you have no choice but to agree on what I have said. And then the person from the buyer side, as I said, okay, it is either a project manager, procurement manager, any other person. He's saying, oh yeah, I have no choice, this is the blackmail, uh, not a commerce. The response, he says that okay, yeah, we sell it, we call it sales, and I will need the cash in your wallet too. So ultimately what he's saying that okay, we want to juice you to the extreme from our side, and you have left with no choice. So indirectly, what is the message, or what is the story this story talks about is that okay, if you don't know procurement, or if you are not familiar with procurement in the required extent, or the correct people from the buyer side are not involved, you can end up in this kind of situation. So management and understanding the procurement management is too much important from project point of view, because it can delay the project, it can even backfire, as you mentioned that okay, if you roll over or go back to the cycle again, it is going to affect you badly. So so this is what the message, or I wanted to give. So here the basically what I wanted to say that okay, why it is important, and then who should be doing it. So it is basically the person who really know about it. It could be, and if the person who is assigned for this topic should get enough knowledge to work on this topic, so that these kind of troubles are not coming up. So from uh, procurement point of view, let us talk how a procurement cycle or general procurement cycle goes within an procurement, or in a procurement cycle. So it basically start with an identification and definition of need for outsourcing. So as I mentioned earlier, the necessity part has to be analyzed very well before going ahead and planning for any procurement, because it costs you money, it costs you time, it is involvement of one party, or which is not within the organization itself. So the control has to be very strong when we talk about the procurement. So this is why this part is very important, and then this is done thoroughly to identify that okay, what we have to do, and identifying the real need of an outsourcing. After doing it, we actually go for the plan activity, like market analysis, time analysis, what is the quantity, quality, and the cost related information. And so this is a part of when we say that okay, here I said, okay, why we need it, we have to identify it and what we really need it. And here we actually identify that, okay, what can be done, why, when we really need it, what is the possibility to get it from the market, and doing the market analysis, what all solutions are available actually within the same requirement framework. So these all things are important and then has to be done after identifying the outsourcing need or the procurement need. After doing the planning part, we do go for preparation part, where we talk about the RFX. Actually, I mentioned RFX because there are different terms which you can say: RFI, RFQ, RFD, RFP, IFD. So there are so many terms which are relevant to this. All are related to regarding the request or RFI. If for example, if I will just touch upon RFI, is request for information. It is nothing but to get information on something which you are not sure, and you are also not sure that, okay, what is coming or can be provided by the service provider. So market analysis is something which you can consider that, okay, you did some analysis over here for the procurement, and then when you come here and then you know that, okay, there are some potential in the market, but you don't know how strong it is, you go for RFI. So this is what you go for it. And then based on the analysis or based on the information coming from the vendor, supplier or the vendor, you will further refine it to go for RFP or RFQ, depending on the clarity what we have or what experience we have, and based on the project need also. So next is, after doing this RFI and then preparing for RFI, you will get the proposal based on this RFI from different supplier, vendor, or what the person who is going to provide the service or result to us are going to give us the feedback, and then we have to evaluate. There is a proposal coming in, and then we have to identify the potential out of them. So if it is 10, we have to narrow it down to 3, 2, or whatever is the possible solution, or whatever the criteria. So here identifying in potential seller is nothing but, I mean, it has to be done with the quantification. So you say one parameter I would touch upon is the seller selection or supplier selection criteria. There is one term you can use where you identify, for example, if you go for an mobile purchase, that is one example you can take it. And if you go to Amazon, you are identifying or trying to buy something on Amazon, then you will see that, okay, there are so many configuration, but what really I want, what RAM I want, what hard disk and storage I want, what is the processor I'm looking at, or what speed I am looking at, and yeah, and it's a 4G or 5G or 2G it is, what is the display quality. So these are some criteria which I say that, okay, which we define when we talk about identification of the potential seller, and evaluating their proposal from their side based on our knowledge, or we can take some expert also to involve here and then identifying this. And then after doing this, now we are short, or we are came down to a shorter bidders, or you can say sellers, which we say we listed down on top 3 or top 5, and then we are now negotiating with them, because we know that, okay, they have proposed, and we know what could be the potential one for us, and then we go and negotiate with them. There are different negotiation techniques which also should be known to project manager or the procurement manager who is working on it. So today we are not going to talk about them, but there are multiple which maybe at when you say PMP exam point of view also, you should be knowing it. So maybe you can also look into that, okay, what negotiation techniques which can be used when we are talking about the procurement management in general. And yeah, so after doing this negotiation based on this given data as well, we try to narrow it down to the a final bidder or seller, and then we define identify the final one, and then we go for the procurement or contracting. So generally, when we get a project, even within the organization, that is also going through the similar kind of process. And if we go and subcontracting something outside, that is also going to the similar process. So this is how overall process or the flow of procurement goes in. And if you see here that, okay, after doing in the contracting, we talk about the scope, the payment terms, the legal bindings, etc, because it is an kind of legal bind. When we say contract, it is nothing but a legal binding between supplier and the buyer. So after doing this, still the scope is not closed, or you can say the contract is done, means nothing, we are done. No, actually, after doing this procurement or the contracting is done, we are defining this term, which also include the review of items which we from the supplier side, which we are getting in when we are doing. If it is a software product, we talk about what are the modules they are releasing, are they meeting our quality criteria or not. So those kind of inspection. And then uh, as I mentioned here, that administration of the contract and amendments. So nothing but we get this, if we say software, as I mentioned, that the software modules which we are getting. If we talk about the construction company, what kind of how much time they are taking it, how much material are they using, the correct quality of the material, are they meeting this required standards when we are talking about it, and international standards, internal standard, but within the organization which we are trying to follow for this particular project, are they really meeting it? Invoice checking and the quality checking, site visits, all those things we will do, or our site inspection and quality audits, you can say, all those things we will do when we do talk about the administration of that. And if there is a change in it, so we have to look into amendments as well. And then amendment also has to be like, we have taken the previous example, or seen the previous example. We have seen that, okay, the seller is trying to sitting on our head, even saying that, okay, yeah, this is now your problem, and then I am going to do this. So we have to ensure that, okay, that kind of situation is not coming. At the same time, we also need to ensure that, okay, when we are doing an amendment, it is within the legal binding again, and it is in a situation that, okay, it is not going to create similar problem again in future also. So this is the phase which will be coming in when we talk about the administration of after doing the contract, and during the life cycle of that procurement phase. And after doing this, and after getting the invoices, signing the invoices, getting all the work product which we really wanted, we will end finally going for an end of the procurement. It can be, the procurement can happen at any time, so it is not that, okay, we have to do at the till wait for the project closure itself and then do it. That is why even the PMBOK 6 has removed it from the closure phase specifically. Rather than, it depends on the project execution phase, and then based on the procurement closure, you have to close it. And so that we don't have any backlog or nothing pending from the that particular procurement point of view. So this is the overall cycle on the procurement side. Yeah. So is it clear till now here? Any questions? Maybe if we want to follow. I mean, Bruno, how we take it? We take some questions in the end, or we should
No,
we
no, we
can.
can have questions. You can ask anyone who has questions or comments can interrupt in the middle also. Of course, we will have a proper Q&A at the end, but please feel free
Yeah.
to interrupt as needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hope
Yeah.
it's okay with you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, for me it is fine. So this is what the overall flow of an procurement goes, how it is going. I wanted to talk about. Is there any questions? Maybe I just short check I wanted to do. Silence. It means I will take it forward. Okay. So then let us talk about contract. What is contract? So because
Tarun, one
this.
minute. Sorry. Some
Uh,
were messaging me privately that the presentation you were not able to see. Anand, for example, you are able to see now.
okay.
Is everyone able to see Tarun's presentation? Tarun is running some slides.
No,
Anand, you're not
Bhuvan. I
able
could.
to. Yeah. How about others? Can anybody see
Yeah,
the?
we
I could.
can. We are able to see
Yeah,
Bhuvan.
yeah, yeah. I can
Okay.
see.
Yeah, because for
Yeah,
your
slides are
information, Tarun is
visible.
running quite a lot of slides and he's talking based on the slides. So I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Anand, maybe you just try just one more because it's automatic joining the session. No lobby here. So just check and yeah, let me know.
Yep. As already got interrupt. Short query, Tarun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Related to the closing of procurements, you were saying that it will be happening in the execution phase of it, of the project itself.
Not
Is like that?
necessarily, not
Okay.
necessarily. It depends on the procurement. So suppose, for example, you are buying for some instrument. You want to buy some particular instrument for your project, which is part of which is going through this procurement cycle. Then, based on the execution of that procurement, if it is finishing, like if you want something for the validation of your product, okay, then you need something to be available before the validation starts. So actually the project is still in execution phase, and you are going to start your testing only. But from procurement point of view, it is done, because the procurement, what the instrument what you wanted, it is available now, and now you can close that particular thing from that front.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. But the whether what do you say, like satisfactory, or satisfaction state of sellers, what are the product provided by the seller, related to that, the
Mhm.
validation will be happening in the monitor control procurement itself, is it? And based on that itself, we will be able to close it.
Yeah, it depends on the
Yeah.
kind of procurement. That is why I said I just
Okay.
taken an
Okay.
example which is very
Okay.
straightforward, which you don't need to have much follow up with the procurement. I mean, for example, I took that, okay, one test equipment. So maybe the
Okay.
test equipment, what you really need is a fixture which is supplying you some, giving you 5-volt output. Okay, so that is going to be used in your validation. I wanted, is it giving it the same quality, and then that can be done, and you can close it before the validation is starting, because that is not going to hamper in your validation
Okay.
separately. Okay, that procurement
Okay.
can be at the same time. What you took an example, maybe something which is going to be used during your testing and has to be checked during the testing itself, then you cannot close that procurement in between. You have to do the complete cycle, and then only you can close. So it depends on the procurement, as I said. Something can go
Okay.
for long time, something can close even for a shorter time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now the next point which I wanted to touch upon was regarding the contract. It is yeah. So as the definition, again, it is coming from PMBOK only. I just wanted to touch there itself that, okay. So the contract is mutual binding agreement that obligates seller to provide the specified product or service or result, and obligates buyer to pay for it. So it is very straightforward definition. But when we go further and then we see that, okay, what kind of contracts we have, it doesn't look the same way. So if I say, I will try to repeat it again, because our contract will start, and the next topic, or the main topic which we are trying to cover here, is on the contracting part only. So seller is someone who is going to give us a product, service, or result, and they are obliged to do this. And if they are not doing it, they are legally bound to do give I mean, provide the result. Otherwise, the legal binding is there over there. Similarly, the buyer has to pay for it. So from buyer side, we have to ensure that, okay, we are paying on time, which is based on the agreed term which is mentioned in our contract, as I mentioned here, and also administrating contracts. So these two phases are actually the phase where we will talk about, or we will look into contract more. So buyer has to pay for it according to the supply result, or whatever we are getting, or the terms which you have defined. So in some cases, for example, if we are talking about some software module or software product development, we are talking about modules. So maybe after 10 modules, we'll be paying this much. That could be one term. Or you can say that, okay, this much development, we 25% development, and this can be used as an sub product. That can be as one condition, or monthly can also be one condition. So there are different kind of terms which it can be fixed during the contracting itself, to identify what is the payment terms we have, and are the seller is also meeting that or not. So this is from the contracting point of view. I would like to take you through the procurement. Sorry.
Tarun,
Tarun?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. So sometimes, in the definition in the previous slides,
Mhm.
the contract is a mutually binding agreement.
Yes.
So most of the time, these words are, sometimes also interchanged, agreement and contract. So can you clarify this?
I mean, what is the question? I didn't got the question actually.
No,
Difference between the agreement and the contract, I think.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
contract is legally binding agreement. So if you say it is a contract and agreement is sub part of that, you are trying to say that, okay, something you can agree on something, and if you sign it or you make it legal, it become a contract. If I simply say it, you agree to do something, you do define something, but you don't sign a contract, then it is not legally binding. If it is not legally binding, you don't say it a contract. Does it make sense?
Some people say that all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. That we also.
Yeah, you can other way around also you can say. Correct. Is it clear?
Still, I'm not clear, but still, I will, reach out. Because we'll continue further.
Okay, maybe again, as someone told that okay, all contract are agreement, but all agreement may not be the contract. So if you say from the definition point of view, I'll just try to touch upon again. Until unless you put a legal binding into it to an agreement, it will not become in contract. In other words, okay, you put some binding conditions which we say that okay, this is you have to do it. Otherwise, you can do and agree saying that okay, yeah, for example, if I say and give an agreement to you saying that okay, I will commit you to resource. Okay, just from my project to your project. Okay, that is an agreement between you and me. I'm just talking about something. I'm just simple. I'm not taking to the definition of agreement and all. I'm just saying that we agreed and we you can say an internal subcontracting between not subcontracting. Sorry, I should not take the word subcontracting. I'm working on. Sorry, there's a lot of noise in background.
1 minute, I
Someone
will
mute
mute
the mic.
myself. Yeah, I'll mute.
Okay, fine. Sorry. So if you say that okay, there is two functional department within the organization, okay, and then from one organization, one functional department to other functional department, you commit some resources over there, but there is no legal binding between them. So if you want to pull your resource, you can pull it back based on your need. But there is an agreement between those two. You say that okay, I will commit this resource to you, but that is not a contract. But at the same time, if you sign an agreement that okay, which says that okay, if you don't commit or we don't provide this resource, this is the penalty you are going to pay, or this is the consequence you are going to pay, then it become a contract to you.
Yes,
You
beautifully.
got the difference.
To add to Tarun, yes, as he rightly said, a contract is legally binding. An agreement is not always. And one important word when you talk of a contract is enforceability. If it really goes to, say, litigation, to court, the various stages of conflict resolution. You have the arbitration, which is done by a third party without going to court, by a mutually agreed third party, or it goes to court, which is a litigation. Under these circumstances, it has to be a contract and not just an agreement. So an agreement can be written also, even not. But as Lakshmi also rightly said, not all agreements are contracts, but all contracts are
Okay.
agreements, and a contract is legally binding and enforceable. An agreement is
Yeah,
not.
yeah. I think with that, I also got one thing which I can say, Bhuvan here. Thank you for taking in that way. If you say that okay, if you have an agreement and if you go to court, you might not get any benefit out of it. But if you go with a contract, you are enforced from either party side. There is a contract between. You can go legally and take an action. And when you have an agreement, you might not. You can take
Yeah.
it in that way.
Yeah, now clear. Thanks,
Yeah.
Varun and Bhuvan.
And anyway, on our
Okay.
PM Rita
So,
WhatsApp group, I have just put a link for difference between agreement and a contract for those who want to. Yeah.
oh.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so let us talk about different type of contract. So again, I will try to take it with an example which I given earlier, similar to that. So there is two parties. One is buyer, you can say a project manager like us, and then from seller side there is one person who is buying, trying to sell something or some service to us or product to us in that term, and we want to have an agreement between these two. So we generally talk about three type of contract. There are different further terms as well. If you so go to construction organization, there are some different terms also you'll get. But in general, what we talk about and what is even mentioned in PMBOK, I guess, that okay, we talk about three type of contracts. So we'll try to cover them here. And here I'm trying to talk about an example where we, as an buyer, we want to renovate our house. And this renovation, we are trying to define some condition or some definition within the contract within our SOW, so that we can go to seller and say that okay, we bind with an agreement to do this work. Okay, so ultimately the goal is rewiring, and we need to have some bare minimum information to start with. So I have taken here two things, and then defining this statement of work. So what we are trying to say is that, okay, we have work wiring specs. So what kind of wires we really need to do our work within the house when we are talking about the renovation. And we have the details. The second point is that, okay, house wiring details. So any renovation work, when we talk about the electrical wiring, we need to have the wiring details, that, okay, which wire or which specification wire we need to will be flowing from here to the, I mean, one location to other. For example, if you say geyser connection, we need 15 ampere, right? AC, it is 25 ampere. When for bulb and all, you need only 5 ampere. So this wiring will actually tell the supplier or the seller that, okay, what kind of a structure we have and what kind of the specification. At the same time, what are the overall material requirement from our side. So based on this, we can write something as an statement of work, and which can be checked by seller and then agreed to do an contract. So for type of contract, let us talk about different type. Let us talk about the first situation. Right now, if you see, if it is visible, you will see all ticks over there. So as a buyer, uh, I want to do this work, and then I have all my wiring specification available. I'm a technical guy, or you can say a person who knows about it, what kind of wiring should be there and what kind of wiring should go from one place to other place. And then I have a preferred supplier as well, or you can say not supplier, as in brand. I would say that, okay, maybe I mean something with ISO marking or something. I am not remembering exact brand right now. Any Havels, or maybe you can take Havels in as a company which supply the wires. So I know which company I want to go for. So I also have the complete wiring diagram or the details about my house wiring, and based on these two details and by when I really want it. So I want to do it in 15 days or 1 month time duration or 2 months time duration. I know it in advance, because I'm doing this renovation, for example, for Diwali. So next month I want to do it. So I have all these details. I'm going back and writing this in my statement of work, and then I'm calling and seller. So this is one kind of plumber or electrician who comes in and then checks these details. And from his side, if you see the identify the color difference, he has to identify and then tell what is the material required, and overall material requirement would be what would be the cost of it. And then because we have the wiring and all other things, so we know what is the cost. From his side, he knows that, okay, what would be this, and what is the labor cost for doing this complete wiring, because we have given complete wiring detail and the specification also over here. And based on this, we, from both buyer side and seller side, we know most of the things which is required in to agree on the contract or on the work. So this kind of agreement, we will talk about the fixed price quotation, or fixed type of fixed price kind of contract. Why fixed price? As I mentioned here, or marked here, that, okay, we know most of the things and we can agree upon, and there will be very less chances of slipping around. So if you say that, okay, we any changes from the wiring will not happen, wiring specification generally will not happen, and then from his side also, he knows the labor and the material cost, then it will not going to change much. So from that point of view, you can go for a fixed one, because you know most of the things, and now you can define an agreement. So that agreement or that contract could be a fixed price contract. Now second scenario could be here, that, okay, have I want to do the same thing. I want to do rewiring for Diwali, but I actually don't know what specification of the wire I really need. And I also don't have wiring plan or the details of my wiring which is within the house. So I just know that, okay, there are some bulbs here, that there are 15 connections, but which wire coming from where, what is the wiring done, what is the length of the wire which has to be done, those details I really don't have. So I will just write, and then very weak SOW, where I would say that, okay, I know this information, that, okay, when I need it, but I am not very much sure about what has to be done. So I just give some basic information, as I said, okay, this many fans, this many lights, and this is the connection. When he surveys our house, he can tell that, okay, this is what you can look into. Based on that, he will have an lump sum idea or very high level idea, but he knows about what material he has to use, and then what labor he can have. So he has already some people who are working with him, and then he can say that, okay, this is what I can do for material and cost point of view. So I will define it, and then I will give it to him, saying that, okay, this is the seller will come up with a solution saying that, okay, yeah, this is the material cost, this is the material we will be using it, and then we can say that, okay, this is for example, I will use 5 ampere wire, and this will cost you around 15 rupees per meter, and then I will use 25 ampere wire, it will cost you 50 rupees per meter, something like that. And per day cost for my labor should be around 500 rupees per day, and then the supervisor for them will take around 1000 rupees per day. And this will be going for I cannot commit you the time here. It will be depending on the completion of the contract or completing of the complete wiring, because I don't know how the wiring inside it is. Do we need to completely change it and all? So based on this, when we go for a contract, we actually go for a time and material contract. So what is difference between the previous one in this situation? Actually, from buyer side, we have less knowledge, or we have limited knowledge about what we really want to do. But at the same time, seller has good understanding on what he can provide for the same kind of same work. So he can provide based on the per hour cost, per day cost, and the material cost, what he knows, and then based on that he can do, so that he doesn't have kind of time limitation or a clear deadline for him. But at the same time, he is going to work on this project, and then he can start it soon. So the contract can be signed here based on this knowledge, and then can be started as a time and material contract. The third possibility is the cost reimbursement type of contract. Here, actually, from our side, we don't know. Again, from our side, we don't have a specification. We don't know what is the wire we need, what is the housing wire, housing definition, and we know that, okay, we want somewhere in Diwali, but that is not also fixed. Again, similar SOW like previous one, but here there is a change. The supplier or the seller side, he also not sure that, okay, what kind of material it would be, because there is no clear point understanding on the complete housing. And at the same time, the material cost what he is buying, maybe you can say that, okay, it depends on the kind of cable he is going to use. He will check with this buyer at the time of implementing it, and then want to do it. So he is not able to give a clear indication that, okay, what material it will be using. At the same time, there could be some market fluctuation also regarding the wire, saying that, okay, this cable rates are changing daily, for example, so daily or maybe weekly. So if the contract is for 2 months, then it is difficult for him to commit in the beginning that, okay, I will be having this kind of wiring for you. So here he's not very much sure about the material. At the same time, the labor what he was working with is already occupied somewhere else, so he has to subcontract some people for, you can say, daily wages over here, and then he has to do daily labor cost also. So daily he cannot commit on that, okay, I have 500 rupees per labor per day. Instead of he can say that, okay, this is the material, I mean, the material I cannot commit, the labor I cannot commit per day, but what I can commit you that, okay, whenever I'm coming and working for your project, or when I start, based on the daily work, whatever material is consumed, if the 5 ampere wire is consumed for this much, and then the cost of that day is suppose 15 rupees or 16 rupees, based on that I will charge you for that. And based on the labor cost, I will put, this is the labor cost per day is coming, like 500 per day, one day, and the second day it could be 600, it could be less also. And on top of that, there will be some profit which he is already knowing by himself. He will not tell the buyer, but he will put that margin also, and then say that, okay, yeah, this is what I can give you as an contract. We can agree on this, and you can have this kind of contract, and this is called as an cost reimbursement kind of contract. So these are the basic three type of contract which happens between generally defined, or you can say which kind of contract which can happen within the two parties when we talk about buyer and seller. Is it clear till here? Because we will further go in detail about it. If
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, fine. So maybe it is, I hope it is clear. So we can just quickly go through again. Fixed price, you have most of the things clear. Time and material, you have some clarity on seller side, not from the buyer side again. But we can do it. And then when we say cost reimbursement, it is more or less not clear from either side. Okay, now the further when we talk about contracting or the type of contract, we can talk about fixed price contract. So if we look into PMBOK, we will see three. The one purple which I marked here is generally not mentioned in PMBOK, but it is defined, or you can say it is available when we talk about fixed price contract, excuse me. And there are even different type also, but we'll talk about in fixed type, when we say that okay, these three are the basic one which we should be more focused. And this is also good to know, because if sometime if there is a question coming in, because PMBOK is not the only source of knowledge. So we say that we can talk about it, so that we know about it at least from our side, and regarding the fixed type of fixed price contract. So fixed price contract are basically four type, as I shown here. The one is fixed price, nothing as we shown in the previous example also. Most of the things are clear, and we have a fixed price over there. So there is a price plus an cost on top of it. Um, okay, we'll talk in this term itself. There are some pros and cons also, but I'm not talking about them right now. uh, Okay, fixed price, then it is nothing but there is a cost plus the fee. As we seen in the previous example, we know everything. There is a cost involved into it, and there is a fee from the seller side. Second is fixed price incentive fee. It is actually again similar to the previous one. We know about the cost what we will be having, but it is kind of an contract which we want to give or agree with the seller, where we can try to accelerate the project work, or you can say we want to have some benefit from both the parties. So if it is more on we have the fixed price which will be coming in, and based on the actual cost or which will actual consumption during the project, based on that you will have additional benefit. So you can have, if you see fee is fixed, one target fee is fixed, and then there is a share of it. So suppose for example I have taken keep an example in the end. From the cost point of view, we can take it there. Suppose your cost is around 1000 rupees or 10,000 rupees for your project, but actual cost is coming 9,000. So you saved 1,000 rupees over there for this contract. So with that 1,000 rupees, you will have a share between buyer and seller. Suppose buyer is on 20% and the seller is 80%, then he will get 800 rupees extra than the target fees. So something was, suppose his fees was 1,000 rupees. Now he is going to get 800 extra because of this saving. So this is what incentive fee kind of contract. Third is fixed price award fee contract, and generally it is on not so much preferred, or you can say not commonly used, because generally you can say it is on the supply of a material or construction kind of agreement, where we say that okay, I have given just an example here. Suppose one company I mentioned as a blue company, and it is buying screw from his company which is named as green, and there is a contract between them that saying that okay, there is a maximum profit for in this kind of award fee. There is a fixed award. Overall award would be fixed. For example, I say that okay, I have a total award of $30,000 which I can give you for the complete duration of the contract. So suppose it is for 1 year, and each month if you are I can give you 2,000 if you are exceeding the production. So I've just taken an example of production, where you have like expectation some part. Suppose 100% is the general expectation. If you exceed by instead of 100, if you go to 105%, then I will give you 2,000 each month when you do it. So if you do it every month, then I will go to 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. You will get extra every month. And if you don't do it every month, so whenever you are going, you will be getting 2,000. And suppose the contract is for a very long period, 3 years, then 30,000 could have been exhausted before itself. But beyond that, the buyer will not give it to you. So 30,000, as soon as 30,000 exhausted, you will not get additional money, even though you are meeting the 105 criteria. So this is the kind of contract which talks about the award instead of incentive. So it's not a share based; it is just fixed in the beginning. And from the fourth type is price with economic price adjustment. It is nothing but usual long-term contracts where you will be having, you can say, a contract which is not limited to some 1 year or more, and affected by the economic price adjustment. So for example, if I say take a very generic example is our house loans, so home loans, I would say. In that, if you see that, okay, people who take variable interest rate, you will have every 3 months there is an interest rate changing. So you can take similar to that. This is an economic price adjustment for the project or the contract, where you readjust the contract or the amount within the contract based on the current condition. So in case of home loan, as I given that, like, every 3 months thing, the interest rate is changing. So this is kind of contract which you will consider it in economic price adjustment kind of contract. It is mostly the long term contract, 3 years, 4 year, 5 year, or maybe at least five, more than that, similar kind duration, I would say. So this is what the fixed price contracts we have. And then if we say the second type, that is cost reimbursement type of contract, here also we will see uh, the
Tarun,
uh,
sorry
fo-
to
yeah,
disturb.
yeah,
In the economic adjustment, the fixed price. So
yeah.
one statement mentioned as a payment is done at the end. So it means, let's say it's a long term. After 3-4 years only, they will pay. Interim, there will be no payment.
Generally, fixed price contract is something like that only, that okay, you will not have it in between payments. But as I said, okay, if you say, when I taken an example of interest rate, you are actually repaying in fixed amount. Or if you say, how I would say that, okay, installment, you are giving an installment per month, but that adjustment is happening in between. But you are not actually entirely depending on that. So similar to that, when we say fixed price and economic price adjustment, the price is given in the end, because if you say 10 million is start in the beginning, you have done. Now next year, this is changed to 1.1 million. So next year again, you are not going to do the payment. And next to next year, it is coming down again, for example. Okay, suppose it is coming back to 99. So 1% which is in 10 million to 100 million, or maybe whatever we say, 1% it is increased. At the same time, next year it is 1% decrease. So what is happening? You are actually nullifying it. So at the end only, you will have a clear picture saying that, okay, what is happening. So that is why even when we say, try to link it with the home loan example, we will have fixed amount of paying every month. Ultimately, in the end only, you will see that, okay, what is the benefit or loss we are going to get. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So shall I continue?
A short
I
query.
hope.
Sorry. Related to this fixed price award fee, you were mentioning
Uh-huh.
like if a contract was of 3 years and 30,000 is exhausted even before the 3 years of contract, the buyer will not pay the 2,000 award fee. Is it like the 2,000 which was awarded? Is the part of a budget itself, or how is
Yeah.
it?
If I come back, I have said that, okay, 30,000 is I fixed it during the start of the contract itself. I said,
Okay.
okay, I will give you award fee of 30,000 maximum. Okay.
Okay.
Now, whatever you avail every month, I can give you. If you go beyond 105, you will get 2,000. So it means, suppose January I have done it. So I'll just try to start with January. 2,000 I have taken. So out of 30,000, now 2,000 is taken. 28 is only pending with me. Okay.
Okay.
So it will exhausted like that.
So that 30,000 which you mentioned is not actual price for the product. It was only a
No.
maximum. Okay.
It is the award. Yeah, it is maximum award fee which you want to give it.
Okay.
Okay, that is the fixed amount, that is not related to directly, no connection between the work
Okay. Oh,
this thing and a
clear,
contract. It is
clear,
an
clear.
additional add-on, you can say.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I missed that award fee for that 30,000. Okay, clear, Tarun. Thank
Okay, clear. Okay, so next is next type of contract we can say is cost reimbursement type of contract, where we say again similar to the previous one, you will see more or less same kind of definitions here. And so yeah, let us go one by one here again. So fixed price contract or fixed price cost reimbursement contract. Here again you will have cost plus fee. And here, what is the difference? I think if I just try to connect to you. Here also we are talking about cost and fee, and here also we are talking about cost and fee. Is it clear? Why? I mean, does it make confusion, or it is clear? Why? What is the difference between the previous one and this one?
Here, post providing the invoice, provide the cost.
Yeah, that's true. So here the fees part is fixed and the cost part is not fixed. The previous section we have cost part and fees part, both the things are fixed. So that is the difference between the previous one and this one.
One more point. Is it like in the first one, the buyer already knows the price of the product, and in the second one, he don't have the exact value of the item to be
Correct.
purchased?
Correct. You are absolutely correct. As we try to give an example, the seller clearly saying that okay, whatever the cost is coming, I will charge on that. You have to invoice me. Or I will give you invoice, and then you have to pay me what I have from the material front or the requirement front. I am doing it plus my fee is extra over there always. So that will be done, I mean, from his side. For example, if I say this is I have a fees of I have given here as an example, the fees component is $1,000. So I told that okay, this is my fees is $1,000, and plus whatever material or whatever resource you are I'm going to give based on the resource utilized, I will be charging you. For example, I am using human resource. So per hour I am charging for them, or per day I am going to charge them for 1,000 rupees per day. Okay, so based on this and plus fee me, so every day whenever you are going to use me based on the material, as I said, okay, in cost reimbursement you don't know fixed price of today it is 1,000, tomorrow it could be different as well. Okay, and then fees part is you are defining it based on your fee is very fixed from beginning itself. You say that okay, there's a fees I'm going to take it from you. The cost part is only going to vary here. Is it clear? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, clear.
Yeah, okay. So first is cost plus fixed fee. So this is what we discussed right now. And second is the cost plus incentive fee. It is similar to the previous one, but again there is a catch here. So if you see, again we are talking about actual cost. We are talking about fee part, which is there is a fixed fee part, and then incentive which we are talking about. So here the difference is there was a share between buyer and seller. Here we are more talking about the share of the seller. So and here when we say that okay, we are meeting or not meeting an actual cost, based on that you will actually end up in getting some penalty. So penalty or an advantage, and here penalty and advantage word is used because in this case the share is fixed. For example, again if I say some 20% is there, and then I am actually going beyond my actual cost, target cost. So actually I'm going to end up in giving some penalty, but this penalty will also be fixed, that okay, minimum fees I will be talking about, that okay, fixed fee is something like that. Okay, I have minimum range is some 800. I have taken 1,000 here. Suppose minimum is 800 and maximum is 1200. So even if it is an advantage beyond 1,200, I am not going to pay. Even if it is loss penalty beyond 900, I am not. The seller is not going to lose. So both the things are there. Okay, there is a cap, you can say. From the previous one, there is a difference. And fixed price incentive fee, yeah, there is also a cap which we, if we per time permits, we will talk about it. Otherwise, yeah, I will try to take these two as an example also later on. So the third type is again as a purple color one. It is not actually in general existing, and generally it is used in construction projects and all. So here what happens is there is an actual cost of the product, and then there is a percentage of the cost as a fee. So for example, if I have an work of 1,000 rupees and I define 20% as my fee, so it will be 1,200, which I will, as a seller, I'll be getting from the buyer. At the same time, generally, why it is marked as generally not in mentioned in PMBOK as well, and it is also mentioned. I have seen, I think, Rita or somewhere. That you can see that okay, it is not allowed in Europe, US. Sorry. So this contract, why it is not preferred is because based on the actual cost, you will get the fee. So if I want to delay something, if I purposefully delay from the seller side, actually what I'm trying to do is I'm increasing the cost. As soon as I increase the cost, I will get the fee, more fee out of you. So actually it is kind of juicing project. So from the seller, you can actually, I've given one example as well here. You have 10,000 as an fee. If you get 10%, the total cost came as $10,000, then you will get an 1,000 rupees as $1,000 as an fee. But if you increase the same work, you take more time, you spend more material, and you show that okay, you have spent more project cost, and the project cost is shown as $12,000. Then you will have, based on same 10%, you will get 1,200 as fee. So you see $200 extra you are getting from the seller side. So seller will be in general in benefit, and there is no clear motivation to meet the contract in time. So this is why it is not preferred one as well, but it is there existing also.
So
One,
Tarun, yeah, just sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
So is it something that we see in India when there are public projects that are happening, and most of the times they don't complete on the time, and
Uh, yeah,
so
you
is
can
it is
say.
it
Yeah, you can say it could be not in detail. I can't say, but generally this happens in construction. The example. Hello.
yes, I'm
Yeah,
listening.
yeah. So generally, I've seen examples from the construction industry only. So where you can say, you can take it. The construction could be the road contract or something like that, where you will have more benefit or can use more benefit out of it.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
it's not that they're not awarded; they are still in the system, right? They're in practice, because somewhere when I
I,
happened to read, probably that was in Rita's only, that such contracts are not usually taken up in the US or the European countries, but wherein the
yes.
relations between the two parties are more dominant than the costs and all, So at those places, these kind of contracts are in existence, and India is one such place where we value relations more than anything else. So I just thought
Yeah, yeah,
asking about that, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh, Okay. The last one from the cost reimbursement point of view is cost plus award fee. It is similar the what we have seen the previous one. Here also we are talking about the award fee, and it is not a fixed amount which is defined in the beginning. So it is on a basis that okay, there will be an award which will be given to you, but it is not as an fixed one. So based on the overall performance of the project, there will be an additional award which will be given to the project. So if you see here, I have tried to mention that okay, award, it is on customer delight, but not predefined. So you will have a condition that okay, there will be an award, but there is no predefined or fixed condition that okay, this much amount you will be getting as an benefit out of it. So this is the fourth type of cost plus cost reimbursement kind of contract. And next is the time and material one. So there is no detailed definition, or you can say different subtype of it, because it is straightforward that okay, you have a specific service conditions, and you will see that okay, there is an fixed per hour cost also, where you know what is the cost going to be from your side, and plus your fee as well. So I've just taken one example, like service companies, you will have some contract that okay, an skilled resource would be having some $33 per hour, and then skilled will be $50 per hour, similar to that. So you will have such kind of um, contracts when we talk about time and material. Okay. And this is one thing. Okay, I'm just trying to go to the time as well, that okay, So here, if you see, I just try to give one graph over here between seller and buyer. I try to put it in perspective, saying that okay, what is the less riskier for the buyer, and then what is high riskier for buyer. At the same time, what is less riskier for seller, and what is high riskier for seller. So this is maybe if you see from this graph point of view, you'll see the fixed price contract is in general. I will just take one example. For buyer, it will be less risky. At the same time, for the seller, it is the highest risk. Why so? Because in this contract, we defined a fixed price. So we have said that okay, this is the fees. For example, if we talk about the wiring example for us, which we have taken, we have given the detail. So the supplier or this electrical contractor said that okay, I will do it in 50,000. Now, because if he lose some resource, which is skilled resource, because of some accident or some other reasons, some unforeseen reasons, he has to pull in some other resource from outside, or the material availability is changed. The supplier, preferred supplier, which he wanted to use, now no longer supplying him. He has to go for something else. And then this cost for the material is going high. So ultimately, what is happening? There is a change in the availability of material and the resource, both from the seller side. But from the buyer side, we have already fixed 50,000. So more than 50,000, we will not paying him. Whatever comes extra is, even if it is going 55,000, the subcontractor or the seller has to bear it from his side. He cannot change it anything over there. So that is one example I wanted to take here to just go through it, which might help you in during your preparation as well. And next, I wanted to talk about two important terms, or maybe I will take you through one example first, and then maybe we can come back to the previous one. So, previous slide. So, just a moment. I'm trying to. Oh, sorry. The previous slide. I put it in Excel so that it is easier to connect as well. And if you want to, is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible a little bit. Yep.
I am trying to increase the zoom level. I hope it is visible now.
Actually, we individually can also zoom around. It's fine.
Okay, fine. Anyhow, I have done it from my side. So that individually everyone has to do, then it will be difficult. So if you see, this is just an example where we are talking about cost plus incentive fee, where I was telling that okay, there is a cap between maximum fee and minimum fee, and we have a question. You can say I just taken an example where we are talking about what is the scenario could be. So we have a seller ratio of 20%. So 20% is the fee. The additional incentive area which seller will get as an as part of the contract when we are talking about the overall expense on the project or the contract. So the target cost is nothing but the overall project cost. So if we say the subcontractor, the seller is agreeing to do some work, I have taken, I think around 20 lakh here, as in 2 lakh or 20 lakh. Okay, whatever it is, I think 2 lakh it is. And target fee I have taken as around 25,000, and the minimum this is the initial parameter. If you say I do it in 2 lakh, I have contracted, I do it in 2 lakh, I'll get 25,000 as my fee. But if I do because of this ratio, so if I do the actual cost which is for this project is coming down, or you say I do it before less than 2 lakh, then I'll get some benefit, and if I do it more than 2 lakh, then I will end up in losing some money. So this losing and winning, I have just tried to keep it here. So for example, if you say I have taken that okay, this kind of question might also you will see in exam also, that okay, I just put it that okay, what is the parameter we have given, and how much will be the seller reimbursement for the cost performing for the fall work as below. So the actual cost is around 1,75,000 considering the 2 lakh. So actually he is going to get final fee is 30,000. That is the maximum cap over here. The target fee was around 25,000 only. So he has done it before, so he is going to get some benefit. I've tried to put it here as well. We can see it in drop down as well. We can try with drop down also. If I say like he is doing somewhere 21 2 lakh 10,000, he is going to get 23,000. instead of 25,000. So he's losing some money. So if you see here, you will see kind of relation between these two based on the 20%. I just put the formula over here, which is shown here also, that okay, target fee, target cost minus actual cost plus the seller ratio plus the target fee. Target fee is nothing but 25,000. So if it is going less, the actual fees is going beyond, then you will lose money from the target fee at the same time. And there's a cap also. So for example, if you see here, that is why I put it here also. I have a maximum cap here, and if you come down here, if you see after this, if you see actual cost is 2,20,500. Beyond that, even I am spending more, 2,40,000 also, I am still getting 20,000 as my fee. Even for 2,80,000, I am still getting 20,000 as my fee. So there is a cap on this. So even the cost is going beyond, there is a fixed liability to the over here. So this is the one.
Tarun, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question here is stating that how much will the seller be reimbursed? So it's actually talking about the total cost plus the fee. So the question is asking whether then we have to add the cost and the fee together, right? So in this case, it would be how much? Actual cost
No.
2,10,000 plus 23,000, right?
No. This is, we are talking about, I mean, final fee we are talking about, because here, if you say the cost reimbursement, when we say that okay, it is based on invoice. So this part, anyhow, you will be getting whatever actual cost you are talking about. Anyhow, he is going to get it. We are trying to final fee. I'm talking about the fee part. Okay.
Correct. My only question is with respect to the exam point of view. In case if such a question is coming in the exam where the question is stating like this, how much will the seller be reimbursed? So in that case, we should consider the actual cost plus the fee, right?
Correct. Final fee.
Yeah. Okay.
This the fee which is coming here. You can talk about this.
Yeah. Okay.
So. Yeah, so this is how you can look into this. This is one example, and similar to that, I have taken this as the example because it is easier to go through. And if I come back to this previous slide, so this is, I'll just go to the graph here. This is on point of total assumption. This is something from the fixed price section. The earlier one, the example which I have shown in Excel, is on the cost reimbursement section, where we are talking about reimbursement of the cost and giving some fees. Here, more or less on the actual cost plus the incentive. So here, mostly the seller will be in positive side, but there is a limit for getting the positive, cost beared by the seller, buyer as well. So I'll come back to that first. Maybe I should go for this first here so that it is more clear what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so as I was telling earlier, you see that okay, there is a share between buyer and seller. So buyer will also bear something and the seller will also bear something. So if it is on positive side, both will get benefit. And if you have a negative side, means the actual cost is going beyond, like in previous example, 2 lakh. So if it is going beyond 2 lakh, buyer will also be liable and seller will also be liable for that. So this is the difference between the fixed price incentive and the cost reimbursement incentive. So both are there talking about incentive, but here the incentive is more beneficial, or you can say it is shared between both the people. So if it is on positive side, both are getting benefited. But in case of incentive, when we talk about the point of total assumption, which I am trying to put it here, actually the buyer side, the buyer, this graph, if you see, I have talked about 3 lines. One is dark color, purple color, which is this line, which is talking about the actual cost. The second line is buyer payout. So buyer is keep on paying him at a particular till a particular target area, target price area, and from there, because of the actual cost is going beyond, the payout is reducing based on the ratio. And there is a particular limit, there is a ceiling location beyond which buyer will not give any additional money. So this is the fixed amount he is going to give him. So suppose, for example, if I say it is somewhere 25,000, if I consider this, I don't have Excel for this right now with me. It is there in my office laptop actually. So I have not this. So here, if you say 25,000, so beyond this, he will not bear any cost. This is what it is called as an a point of total assumption, and cost where the buyer reaches the. I'll take the laser again. I hope it is. Yeah. Cost of buyer reaches the ceiling price. So there is a ceiling price definition in this kind of contract, where beyond the ceiling price, the buyer will not take the liability. So seller has to take any additional cost. And this gray line will talk about, give an indication on what is the profit to the buyer. So it is not on scale. So you say that, okay, it is on 100% earlier, and then as soon as it reaches target, his profit start reducing. And then when it is going further, you see it can go even negative also. So the incentive, instead of getting incentive, he may end up in losing some money as well here. So this is one additional term which I wanted to talk when we talk about point of total assumption. So this is one question, or maybe the one point which might come in exam as well. If it is coming as in calculation, we might need to look into that. And if not, maybe at least we should know from the term point of view what is the point of total assumption. So it is nothing but the point when the buyer reaches the ceiling price. Okay. Is it clear? Maybe this would be one or two things maybe we can talk about further. And from my side, I just wanted to cover till here. If any questions, we can take it now. I think 45 minutes, which Bhuvan told me, so I try to take in the same frame.
Hey, beautiful, Tarun. Thank you very much. It was really nice. In fact, we thought of having types of contracts, but as we had in our previous discussion before this, it was very right that we could not jump directly into types of contracts. So it was great that you could give a basic overview of the entire field of procurement management according to PMP exam and also PMBOK, and then float into types of contracts. And these are really important things, point of total assumption and the calculations and everything. So thanks a lot. So anyone has questions, the floor is open, please. We will have another 15 minutes, maybe okay, or 10 minutes we can have questions and answers on this topic or any other topic. And by the way, this session is being recorded, and I will share this on our channel and let you know. Any questions, please feel free to ask.
Tarun, I have one question. In this graph, there is a gray color line. What about that?
As I put it here, it is seller's profit. So if you see, it is, as I said, it is not on scale. I just try to, this generally you will not see in, I've seen it online, one or two places, but I try to simulate in a way that, okay, we try to put the seller's figure as well. But, so if you see at one particular time, after some time, if you see here, it is actually where buyer is going to stop the giving money to him. And if you see here somewhere,
the target price is reaching very close to, sorry, the actual cost when it is reaching close to the target price, the margin of the seller is also coming down. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So if you see here, till here, there is I have tried to put a profit margin as well. So if you see here, this is the actual cost. You have a fees overhead or the profit over here. So the seller is getting this money till here from the buyer. When it is reaching the target price, so if you see target price and target fees based on which the profit was defined earlier, after this there is a ratio which I showed just before. So there is a ratio for the buyer and there is a ratio for the seller. Based on the buyer's ratio, the payout will reduce, because still here you are getting the complete margin.
When seller reach the target price, that time this the formula is applicable, PTA.
Yeah, no. PTA, PTA formula will be applicable here, and PTA is actually, if you see, selling price minus target price about below and divided by buyer's ratio plus the target. This is the point here. Okay, you are trying to reach which is the PTA for me, but this I am trying to say that from here itself you have a ratio. So you have selling price, sorry, not selling price. We are talking about selling price here. When we say from the formula point of view, your actual cost minus target cost minus actual cost into buyer's ratio. So buyer's ratio, if it is going on negative side, you will end up in paying him less fee because it is on negative side.
Okay.
So if I try to go back, yeah, if you see this page, one second, I'll take the laser point here. You see the cost variance is there. The cost variance is defined in two ways. One is buyer's ratio and one is seller's ratio. Okay, so when the project cost is already reached the target price, and beyond that, whatever is the cost coming, it is actually going into negative. It is negative for both buyer, both for seller as well. So from buyer side, you will end up in getting less profit. So what I was trying to show here is to this graph, till here you are getting full profit, whatever was defined earlier, which is reaching the target price. But actual cost is still keep on increasing. Then you are actually reducing or getting less profit, because the buyer ratio is there is a negative component coming in, because the actual cost gone beyond the target cost. At a particular point, which is we say as a ceiling point, this is the point where from where the buyer will say that, okay, I cannot pay beyond this one. So it will say 25,000 is the reached amount, or 2,30,000, 25,000, 2,30,000, 2,50,000. If you say beyond this, if the cost is going beyond, I will not be able to take the liability on the loss part. So there is 100% the variance which we have seen, that is 100% on the seller side. So if you see here, from this point, it is almost zero. Okay, so what is what I try to show here is, till here you are getting 100% profit. If you say the gray line, seller profit, you are 100%. And from here, because it is a shared one, the negative part also you have to take on, your profit is reducing. And when you reach the ceiling price, beyond that, it is drastically going to reduce, because you are responsible for 100% now. So till here, because there is a share between buyer and seller, you are not going to, you don't see a steep curve. But after this, when you reach the ceiling price, you are actually 100% liable for the cost which is coming in the project. You means the seller side. So you will see a steep curve, and then as soon as this cost is going beyond, you will keep on increasing your loss part. Is it clear?
Yeah, clear, Tarun. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question? I have not tried to go into, you can say pros and cons from the supplier side, buyer side as of now, because the timeline given to me was 45 minutes. So I just touched upon the type of contract and then the key points over here.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you for your time on this part.
Thank you. Bhavna, anything else? So maybe.
Yeah. So any other quick questions, guys? Maybe on this topic, especially procurement management, types of contract or procurement management in general. Maybe another minute. Otherwise, we can close the session for today.
I have one question, Tarun.
Yeah.
Tarun, this is Sajan here. So basically, what I wanted to ask is, for this particular graph, the ceiling price is approximately 250,000, and what is the PTA? The PTA seems to be a vertical line, so it cannot be time. It's a cost related activity, right? PTA.
Yeah.
So what would be the value of PTA?
No, PTA is this is the what you say, if you put it directly into the formula here, this is what you can clearly see it here. The ceiling price minus target cost. So this is your target cost, or you can say 23,000 minus 25,000 is your ceiling price, 23,000 is your target cost, and the buyer ratio plus the target cost. That is your PTA.
Okay, so it's
in other term, if you say that, okay, you don't know what is your the point of total assumption, you can say what is the ceiling cost. If you know that you have defined in your contract saying that this is my ceiling price, so from here to here, what is the actual cost you are going to take?
From
That is what
from
the PTA will define.
okay, from reaching the target fee to the ceiling price.
Yes, correct.
But still
I
we are
have
getting
tried.
paid, right?
Yeah, you are getting paid. So this is what I try to mention here also. The cost of buyers reaches to the ceiling price.
Okay, from
So if you say if you say 23,000 was for you, and from here to ceiling price, whatever this actually coming from the ratio as well. So if you change the ratio, your ceiling price could be different, or the PTA could be different. If your ratio is less, then PTA would be different.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
This is just an indication. If you say timeline, this is just to indicate to show that okay, there is some this just as I said, okay, it's just an graph created to create the understanding. It is not that okay, there is 30-month or 35-month. I was targeting to do it here. I just try to show it that okay, how it is going. So here the seller is getting the 100% profit, then it is reducing, then here it is he is 100% responsible because the cost has already gone beyond the ceiling price as well.
Right. The thing is, like, I was just trying to understand it from a point of view, like why call it point of total assumption, and then go from there.
Maybe quickly I can give one. So assumption, the word assumption does not come from assume. Let us assume x equal to 2. No, here assuming the total cost. When do you assume responsibility for something? When do you assume the overrun costs? That if you look at the meaning of assumption, right, from this angle, you will be able to understand. Maybe that was a confusion, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
So assume is not let's assume or consider, rather when do you assume responsibility or when do you assume the cost overrun on yourself?
Mm-hmm. And this is from a buyer's perspective or seller's perspective?
It is from the buyer's perspective.
Okay.
Again, I will come here. If you see the definition, this is why I put this also. Cost the buyer reaches to the ceiling price.
Buyer reaches to the ceiling price. Okay.
Yeah. And generally, these are, I mean, first is that, okay, this point is also one is confusing, and that is when I put this as a slide, I also try to put it in general such a way, because I've seen this in online as well in general, but you will not see the profit margin graph over there in the online one, and maybe not the way it is defined here or explained here, because if you see the graph alone, you will not be able to completely relate it. So that is why I put it, I did it in my Excel and try to reach this graph and then put it clearly with the dotted line, so that you it gets a clear vision that okay, what it is actually.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So okay, guys. So any one last question before we close, or?
And if not, I would also like to, if people like to, I'm just trying to escape and then see if people are interested, we can talk about one thing, which is what as a project manager we should be doing, we need to do.
Beautiful.
This is one thing when we talk about procurement management. So this generally I talk this, if you see I have tried escaped it, so there is so much further content which is general when I am talking about procurement management. It is around 4 hours session, so many things I try to skip it here. So maybe we can talk about what as a project manager we really need to do when we talk about the procurement management. If people are interested, we can talk about that. Any short feedback?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Maybe
we are
Tarun, you
interested.
can do.
Yeah, okay. So maybe as I given in the initial example, one example where one person, the seller buyer discussion we were talking about, we have seen that okay, how a contract, a wrong contract or a contract where the things are not defined properly could lead into problems. Now there are one part which generally I take it in my sessions is that okay, what part comes from the project manager point of view, when we talk about the procurement management. And there are two aspects of looking at it. One is that, okay, when there is a special, you can say, subject matter expert or the procurement manager or a person who is coming from the procurement department is attached to the project. One way of looking at it that. Second way of looking at it is possibly we can say that, okay, as a project manager, you are responsible because there is no, the organization is small or there is no special procurement definition available in the organization. So the process is not so matured. So you have to do the procurement part as well. So what as a procurement manager or role point of view, I'm not saying that the procurement as a procurement manager, as a project manager from procurement point of view, what you really need to know or you need to take care when we talk about procurement. This is some point which I tried to list it. There could be further, and I'm not sure that in internet also we can see few things maybe. So one is that, okay, educate yourself from the procurement process in the organization. So in general, as I said, okay, there will in the matured organization there will be procurement manager specifically available in the process or the process definition itself. Then you will get it from the process point of view. But at the same time, we might not be knowing that, okay, what that person is really doing. So what all the people involved in the procurement, is that guy is alone who is going to work on the procurement, or there is an approval authority beyond him where he do something and then get it approval. At the same time, there could be some quality related process also defined that, okay, I will contact first three people to do the to get the bidding, or you can say RFI RFQ phase, and or you can say RFI RFQ and RFP. That is how I will go for before going for PO. So these are the some terms or some general process which might be involved in the procurement of any product or any service within the organization. But if we don't know about it and we don't know what is the timeline actually it is going to take in our project, we might lose in a way, saying the time in a way for the project that suppose the complete process takes 6 months, and we lose to, or you can say we miss to involve the procurement guy at the required time, because we don't know what is the process. We might think that, okay, we know we have a guy over there in the organization and he will take care of it, and we plan it after 3 months itself. So as per me, I am giving the information to procurement guy, after 3 months I should get it. But if you don't know the process, and this process might take you to 6 months, then when we are actually involving him into the topic, it might be too late to involve him from the project point of view. So that is why it is very important from project manager point of view that, okay, you yourself educate enough to know the complete process within the organization, that, okay, how procurement goes on in the organization, how much time it takes, what all stakeholders are there from procurement itself, and we execute our project or we plan our project accordingly. Second is include procurement topics in the project management plan. In general, I have seen, I do use it in my projects, but in general, even for subcontracting within the organization as well, we do subcontracting. So for that also, I plan it in my project plan. But in general, I have seen that, okay, the in the our plan or our schedule, even if I say specifically, our schedule itself will not talk about in detail about the procurement. So we can talk about that, okay, when RFI is coming, or we can say when is we are going to subcontract, when we are going to give the information, if it is even the third person is involved in the project. So we should talk about these terms within our schedule in a good manner, and we should talk about this with the actual procurement SME. So if there is no separate procurement manager available, some senior person who is already involved in similar process, we should include that in our schedule and then talk to him saying that, okay, this is what it schedule, do you see it is good or not? Then if it is fine, take it forward. If it is not, maybe we should make some correction. But the important point is we should involve that in our schedule or our project plan. I just taken schedule as an example because then schedule will click fast, because people don't have it in general for the procurement. So that is one thing. Third is that you can involve the procurement from the beginning of the project. That is also one thing, as I mentioned, that, okay, procurement management plan and everything we say from PMBOK point of view, that, okay, that is required. But in general, when we talk about the project, we generally the procurement guys comes when really, like if I say from hardware point of view, electronic hardware point of view, we will require procurement guy from the component side, and the component side will be coming when we have done the requirement phase, we have done the design phase, and then we might be talking about it. But it is also possible that, okay, if we don't involve them in project in the very beginning, when we are talking about the requirement itself to the customer, we know that, okay, this something is new coming in. If we inform this to procurement guy, he might be possibly checking it that, okay, will it be available for the project in due time, or when we are talking about samples or all, I mean, building some customer sample or not, some at that time is will really be available or not. So those things we can do, or we can only identify if we involve them during the project execution, or you can say very beginning involvement of the procurement people at very beginning of the project. Okay, fourth important point is seek the procurement SME support when needed. So it is when I just mentioned is then when there is no SME available within the project, or dedicated SME is not available in the project, then we can talk, as I said here also, when we are talking about schedule, similar to that, we should seek people support. We should know that, okay, who are involved in other projects from the procurement team itself, or from seniors, so that we get correct advice at correct time. Then identifying the document the risk from the procurement side. Generally, this is also one thing which is in general missed or not considered when we do even the risk assessment. We never talk about the procurement part in general. So what, and in general, missed point when we talk about the risk also is two. I have listed in general. These are the missing points, which is like a delay in review and approvals. So as I said, okay, if the procurement guy alone is there, or there is an approval authority above him, or there is a team of different stakeholders who need to approve, and the process which we talk about. So all this we need to know and should be considered when we are talking about the risk. And contractual delay and errors. So this is also one thing generally when we say contracting, if it is something new, it is possible that there is a delay happening. So what in general as a delay happens in the project, in other projects, those things we don't do not consider. If his procurement guy say, okay, we'll take it 3 months, we'll take it there itself. But if we say that, okay, what is the possible risk, then he might say that, okay, yeah, 3 months I am saying, but there is a possibility that there is a change or error which might come up when we are talking about the procurement, and then it might take additional 1 month. So that risk should be taken into our project management plan or risk management plan to ensure that, okay, overall we are covering from the procurement point of view as well. One more important thing is that, okay, engage during the contract negotiation. I put it in italic as well separately, because mostly there is no final authority from the contract negotiation or approval. This is known thing that, okay, PM doesn't have, or mostly doesn't have, the final authority on the contracting part, negotiation part, and approval part. But still, from project point of view and the project execution point of view, we should be involved or engaged enough to the procurement with the procurement team, so that we are sure that, okay, what is in negotiation is what we need, or there is a change, something like you can say in most of you might have seen in internet also, the requirement point of view, we see different requirement is something, and then you see there is, there is a tree cut or something, the requirement is something, and then you get as in product something else. So that is possible in case of procurement also. So we should be keeping a clear eye on the project or the procurement to ensure that, okay, we are the negotiations are also in the correct direction. It is within the project limit, or you can say project benefit. For example, if I take one good example is that, okay, you want something in 1 month, and your procurement process talks about it will take 2 months. Now, if you don't engage yourself during the negotiation and other thing, then you will end up in losing that time. Then you will get to know that, okay, it is not going to finish in 1 month. But at the same, if you make the requirement clear, you are engaged in the procurement, then maybe you can get the clear acceptance from your stakeholder and the stakeholders from the procurement side that, okay, you go to a supplier which might not be the preferred one from the procurement process point of view, but we take a deviation and get that particular supplier for the project, so that we can do it in 1 month. So that is one way of looking at it. One other point is ensure only one contact channel for communication with seller. So it is the supplier or the seller from for the contract. So in general, it should be avoided that, okay, we different people are talking to him, because one might view or talk about the project or the contract in some way, and the other might represent it in some other way, and end up when we talk about the negotiation, it might hurt. But there is one technique when we talk about negotiation. There is a good guy, bad guy, but that is again focused negotiation where more than one people are involved when we talk about negotiation. But in general, if you say, there should be a single channel to avoid miscommunication or unnecessarily giving some information which we wanted to hide from our side. We wanted to share only few things, but if different people are there, he might get to know when we are talking. Different people are giving the information to him. And one other important point is, if procurement SME is assigned to the project, brainstorm with him at the beginning of the project itself, so that you both are on the same level of understanding. Why it is important? In general, if you say that, okay, procurement SME, if he is available in the project, but in general, if people have experienced as well, then you will see that, okay, procurement guy will not be assigned to your own project alone. He will be responsible for 4 projects, 5 projects, 6 projects, even more, or less, could be even at least more than one project. Then if you see you want to execute something from your project point of view, you are stuck in something, and then you want to talk about that, okay, this is my timeline, I want to have this on priority. The other project also coming in the same way, this is my timeline, I want it in priority. Now for him, both are same. For him, there is no separate priority, both talks about same priority. He might take his own way of taking into consideration that, okay, which project I should take as a priority. But if we involve him from the beginning and we keep him on the same level of understanding during the project execution and the beginning also, he have very clear understanding that, okay, what project really need, what customer really need, is it really the one which I should take it as in the most priority one for the procurement or not. And if we miss it, and if we don't involve, and then suddenly we go and jump and on his desk saying that, okay, we need it now, it might not help to us. So that is why this is also one important point over here. So this is some key aspects or some key important point which I wanted to communicate when we say we from the project manager point of view, when we talk about the procurement management.
Hey, beautiful.
Any point, any clarification? Yeah.
Tarun, thanks a lot. That was really amazing. In fact, this was an unexpected part of the session. Really, thank you very much. In fact, this is one thing that we repeatedly mentioned, that not everything that is said in the PMP or PMBOK is applicable to real life. What is really applicable is how you apply those concepts. What you study in theory, and the list that you have given here is an amazing thing. These are some things we don't. That's why, as you said, procurement management is not something we do. 90% of us don't do in everyday life, so it's very difficult for us to understand the concepts. So thanks a lot for this.
Thank you. I hope what I tried to share is was useful for everyone here.
Yes, Tarun. Thank you so much, and thank you so much. Special thanks to Bhuvan for arranging this. Thank you so much.
No problem. And what we will do is we will also arrange more such sessions from our guest trainers. And Tarun, again, thank you very much, really, for for motivating all of us by joining this for this first session, such session. And thank you very much. In fact, we have always been benefiting from your experience and knowledge. Thank you very much for this, Tarun.
Thank you to you as well, and here, because yeah, we might be doing it in our co-PM sessions within the organization, but yeah, it is giving a different view, different people we are trying to interact with, and then maybe some good questions also over here. Yeah, and in general, procurement is something which is a less known topic. So it is, I mean, the questions also will come when we say that, okay, this is more known to people also.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks a lot again, Tarun, and thank you everyone. And wish you all again whatever is remaining in the Puja holidays time. Wish you all happy holidays to continue, and we will meet in our next week in another session of PM Ruta Refresher sessions. Thanks, Tarun, and thank you to everyone, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tarun. Thanks,
Thank you.
Bhuvan.
Well,
Bye bye. Have a nice day.
yeah.
Thank you.